Hello, Maajid. Firstly, can I just say about the thing about the Weimar Republic? I think you're getting some of your... I think you're using a few misnomers, to be honest with you. Firstly, the Nazis rose to power. Yeah, of course it was within the Weimar Republic, but a lot of it was to do with war guilt and war blame, and a lot of the generals, particularly Ludendorff, etc., the last ones, but basically used a scapegoat of industrialists and so forth within the country to say that they brought about the failure in the First World War.
You know, Mark, I always wonder, see, to have a logical conversation, your critique needs to be relevant to the point that one has raised. And the critique you've just raised, that it was about war guilt, doesn't actually address the points I made.
Well, it does, because the point I'm trying to make is, you're saying that they took this idea from Italy, and that's not true.
No, I didn't say that, Mark. I didn't say that. I said Hitler wasn't... No, Mark, I'll tell you what I... Mark, no, I didn't. Mark, you can listen back to the show. I said Hitler was inspired by Mussolini. It's a very different thing to saying he took the ideas.
Generals and so forth that said that it was the Jews and the civilian government that were to blame.
It is a matter of historical fact that one of Hitler's inspirations at the time he was rising to power was simply Mussolini, and he had a friendship with him after that for a while. So
yeah, he did, but I don't think it's the same thing. What I was going to say was that lady before just said that about being a decent human being, and I have to say, when you look at Corbyn and his track record on things he's been involved with his voting record and so forth, now he is a decent human being, and I find it really deplorable that people can actually blame anything at his door. If he's probably one of the people in this country who's done the most.
Mark, I'm not so interested in whether or not he's a personal, decent human being. I think that actually is a red herring. Let's discuss whether you think anti-Semitism is a problem in society and also a problem, in our political
society. But I do think that
you say that again? I didn't hear you.
No, well, let me say my point firstly.
Well, I didn't hear it. Can you repeat it, please?
I don't think it. I think it's terrible that anyone would be tarred through the colour of the skin or the race that they come from or the background. I think that is shocking, and I think that most people feel that way.
Do you think anti-Semitism is a particular problem we're facing in society at the moment?
Well, okay, I'm not. I just know it's wrong.
No, that's not the question, Mark. Don't be a politician. Is anti-Semitism a rising problem in society?
A problem in society?
Yes.
Well, everything is a problem in society, but I do think, I'm afraid, that it's the right that have let this out of the bag.
Okay, Mark. Are you by any chance a Labour activist?
The things he said.
Mark, are you a Labour activist?
No, I'm not a Labour activist.
Well, because you're sounding like a politician. When I say is anti-Semitism a rising problem in society, you think everything's a problem in society. You're not addressing the question.
Right, okay, I think it's a problem in society. Yes.
Rising
problem in society.
Rising problem.
I'm sorry, but
Mark, is it a rising problem? Is it the most prominent form of hatred in terms of hate crimes that we're currently facing? If you look to statistics, is anti-Semitism the most prominent form of rising hate crime that we're facing in this country at the moment?
I don't know. I don't encounter it.
What if I told you the data? Would you be willing to consider that?
Well, I'm sure. Look, I'm sure. Maajid, you can actually do that, and I think it's wrong that, as I said again, I think it's wrong that anyone should be...
It's like I'm trying to squeeze water out of a stone here, Mark. If you look to hate crime figures, the data shows us that hate crime is rising, that it's it's at an all-time high, and you look specifically at Jewish hate crime, crime against Jews because of the fact they're Jewish, and the CST monitor this every year.
Yes.
The figures have been going up and up and up year in, year out. They are only rising. They haven't dipped yet. That's just the data. That's just the fact of those who monitor hate crime. And when I say, I'm talking physical attacks, like the video you saw from the Tube, where a man was accosting children and threatening people, and has since been arrested. But this is, it's not in dispute when you look at the stats. So I'm wondering why it's so difficult for you to accept it.
No, I'm not saying it's not difficult to accept. I know it exists. I just feel that it's to tar the Labour Party with it is appalling, frankly.
All right. So, are there issues in the Labour Party, in your opinion?
No, well, I think that I'm sorry, but I think Chris Williamson had it right, and I think that he was shouted down for it. I'm sorry, but I think a lot of this it's a failure to be able to criticise Israel for some of the things that they've done, particularly in Palestine and other parts of the Middle East. And I think that
what do you mean by Palestine?
Well, all right, I think that the policies that the Israeli government have on Palestine and so forth.
But what do you mean by Palestine?
On the Gaza Strip and so on.
Okay, so which part? Are you talking about the Gaza Strip or are you talking about the West Bank? Because there isn't currently an entity right now.
For example, the building of settlements and so forth.
Mark,
and it's almost like that
Mark. The reason I'm asking what you mean by Palestine is there isn't a government right now. There isn't like a state.
Palestine, let's say the Gaza Strip then, for example.
Okay, the Gaza Strip. What is it that you're worried about that's happening in the Gaza Strip?
The two tiers, the system within Israel, how they've dealt with, how they've basically made it almost a prison camp in the Gaza Strip. That's 30 miles long, whatever. Is shocking.
Have you visited the region, Mark? Have you visited
as anti-Jewish?
So when I ask you a question, please allow me to do so.
Okay.
All right. Have you visited the region?
No, I haven't.
Right. So how do you know what's going on in the Gaza Strip?
Well, it has been publicised, hasn't it? The things that have been going on.
So who's ruling the Gaza Strip?
Well, Israel technically it's owned by Israel, isn't it?
No, it's not. Who is in charge? Which is the elected authority in Gaza?
They have their own. I know they have their own parliament, basically.
Who is it? Who's formed the elected authority that has been in power in Gaza since?
You're going to say Hezbollah, aren't you?
No, I'm not going to say Hezbollah. I'm going to ask you who you think it is because you've just spoken about an issue. You've just said you're not allowed to criticise Israel, and you've said that it's actually appalling what they're doing there. You called it Palestine. We realise you're talking about Gaza. What specifically?
About all the area.
What is it about what's going on in Gaza that you're not happy with?
Well, for example, there was just an example of one thing that was on recently about fishing. They can only go out so many miles, but the actual fishing that they
You're sounding like Nigel Farage now, Mark. You're sounding like a Brexiter.
Right.
Yeah. Who's in charge in Gaza, Mark?
Well, I'm sure you can. Well, I can't think of the names at the moment. I'm sure they've got.
Okay, give me a rough idea.
Pardon?
Give me a rough idea.
They've got an Arabic, but the Israelis call a terrorist organisation in charge, don't they?
Who? Sorry, I don't know. You tell me.
The Israeli government are saying that the people in charge of
No,
Gaza,
I'm not asking you what you think the Israeli government thinks. I'm asking you what you think, Mark. Who is in charge in Gaza?
Well, the people from Gaza, theoretically.
What are they? Which political party, faction, or movement?
I don't know the name of them
Okay, describe them roughly then. Their phenomenon. Are they left-wing? Are they right-wing? Are they liberal? Are they democratic? Are they authoritarian?
Well, they're democratic because they were elected by the people of Gaza.
When were they last elected? How many elections have they had?
Well, not many. I appreciate that. You could say that
not many. How many elections have they had, Mark?
Democracy in the Middle East.
How many,
Mark?
Mark?
True, is it neither?
Mark, shall I tell you the answers to these questions?
Okay.
Right. So there was one election, only one. It happened over a decade ago. And then after that, all elections were cancelled. The terrorist group, which when you say the Israelis call them a terrorist group, I'll tell you our own law in this country calls them a terrorist group, as does EU law. Hamas, the terrorist group, right, murdered all their opposition, which were the secular Palestinians. They also then decided to tie people they accused of being Israeli agents because they were criticising their government to the back of motorbikes and drag them through the streets to show them as an example of what happens to so-called traitors. As I say, they haven't had an election since this last one, the only one they ever had, which was over a decade ago. They're lobbing missiles at Israeli schools in the south because they want to kill as many children who are Jewish as possible. Right? Is it that government in Gaza you're talking about?
I'm talking about there's various things that the Israelis have done in the Middle East that aren't palatable.
What are those various things?
I'm sorry, that people should be allowed to criticise the Israeli
of course,
state.
We're trying to have a conversation, Mark, about your criticising, but it appears you don't know what you're talking about. So tell me, what are those various things the Israeli government has done in the Middle East that you're upset with?
Okay, well, for example, there's the parts of making Jerusalem the capital again is not right, is it?
Jerusalem? What do you mean making Jerusalem? Okay, Mark, when was Jerusalem made the capital? Mark, hold on a minute. When was Jerusalem made the capital? Mark, please answer the question. I've got to go to the news headlines. When was Jerusalem made the capital? Right, what Mark didn't realise there is Jerusalem has always been the capital for Israel. The Knesset is in Jerusalem. Israel never made Jerusalem the capital. Israel has always insisted it is the capital. It was Trump recently that moved the US embassy to Jerusalem from Tel Aviv. From the Israeli position, Jerusalem has always been their capital, and that's what's in dispute because the Palestinian Authority, known as the PA, also want it as their capital. That's what's known as a land dispute. Anyway, thank you for that, Mark.